thank you all for coming today and giving up some of your time. I'd first of all like to thank our sponsor CCS for supporting this event and enabling us to have these very intimate interviews with our leading chefs. I'd also like to thank Westminster Kingsway for hosting us. Really appreciate it. I know today's going to be a fascinating discussion. I've interviewed Phil quite a few times over the years, and he's had a very exciting career. And grateful that he's hot-footed it or hot-scooted it over from lunch service today to speak to us.
I think when you're on the inside track on something, I think most human beings are like that. To me, I'll always just be, little old Phil who somehow managed to fraud his way, to somewhere near the top in the industry, because all I've ever done is pretty much, other than 3 relatively short jobs before the Square, is just work at the Square and just go to work and do what we do and do the best job we can. And it's only really in the last couple of years where it's just become a really precious thing. It is something that a lot has happened in my life in those 25 years, personally, professionally, and it's only now maybe that so much time has passed and perhaps just to get a little bit older and wiser and you let go of some of the stuff that you grab onto when you're young and you just have a better perspective on it. A life at the Square is, on the one hand, has taken its toll. It's 25 years of hard work and sacrifices and ups and downs, but on the other hand, it has given me a life beyond my wildest dreams. I mean, that is absolute fact. I have not had, I might have had some shit days, but I've never had a boring day. I have had complete fulfillment out of that restaurant. If I was to have to shut the door tomorrow, I would shut it feeling as a professional completely fulfilled, and that's that's only the cooking aspect of it. It's nothing to do with anything else. It's just a great place to have got. So it has become a very precious thing, but perhaps something that is really important is, there are restaurants out there that really are, in a way, one-man or woman bands, where you have a real Trojan leading the way and dictating how every single little thing has got to be done, and perhaps smaller establishments where you really have this one shining star and then a lot of people just kind of making it happen. Square has always been a team, and that's a really important part of it.
It was obviously a magnet for people, because when you think about who passed through that kitchen, Jason Atherton, Eric Chavot, Anthony Dimitri, Steve Terry, I mean, you guys are all leading the industry today.
It's an exciting world, and the food was exciting, and it doesn't mean, the great thing today is that actually you can be, exciting food also happens at places like Pit Q. That's what's cool about cooking now, is that it doesn't have to be sprigs of chervil and concasse and langoustines and truffle. It can be pulled pork and a bloody great bun, and there's every bit as much passion and enthusiasm and energy going into that pulled pork whatever as there was in a ravioli of lobster at Harvey's, and that's really great, because it's the truth is, for most people, for whatever reason, it's unrealistic that all the chefs in this room are going to end up with 2 or 3 star restaurants, because I don't know, for whatever reason. But the key thing is that actually there's every bit as much fulfillment, just as much potential for success and financial reward and all the other things that come with a good restaurant, out of doing something that is ultimately so much more accessible. You no longer need to have some, in the good old days, or the old days, if you were looking for a restaurant site, you wanted somewhere that was on a prime street, that had big frontage because you needed to be seen. Now, you open some funny little gaff down a back street in Bermondsey, where we all just go on our phone and you just Google search Bing and it's there. It doesn't matter where you are. You don't need the resources anymore, and it means that young chefs, the opportunity, it's just so much more. It's all there to be had. It doesn't have to be some $1 million backer who's going to. You just find some modest little place, and if you've got few chairs, few tables, somebody's going to smile at a customer walking through the door, and you cook them a great meal, you've got a restaurant, and that's exciting.
And of course, a lot of people, certainly chefs, were so focused on wanting to have their own restaurant, perhaps having their name above the door, and not realising that actually it's not that easy to make a profit, especially when you've got the same number of front of house staff as you have chairs, and you know.
Yeah, it is. You know, making restaurants are not easy to make profit. You know, they can be hugely profitable, but it's not. It's not easy, and particularly it's actually far easier to make money if you keep it simple. If you want to start putting complicated things on the plate, then you've got manpower and labour, and that's when it goes out the window.
So going back to the square, so you opened in St James's actually, not in its current location, and you were there for 3 years before you relocated?
A bit more than that, probably 5 or 6 years I think. We opened, not far from where we are now, but we opened in King Street in St James's, and with a small team in the kitchen, small team out the front, and we just went hell for leather 7 days a week, cooked our hearts out, served people. You know, there was much less competition in those days. We did most of the time did a pretty good job, so it was, got very busy very quickly, which brought with it a whole raft of kind of problems, but we just worked our kind of way through it, and eventually it got a little bit more stable and a little bit more consistent and a little bit more assured, at which point we then had the opportunity of relocating because our landlord wanted to redevelop where we were, so they relocated us to where we currently are, which gave us an opportunity at that stage to think, right, what are we doing? Where do we want to go? Who are we? What is the square now, and what do we want the square to be? And that was probably the only point in my career where
you got a star at that point.
We had a star at that point.
Yeah.
We got 1 star while we were at the old square, and it's probably the only point in my career, genuinely, where we kind of actually, my partner and I, thought, what do we want to achieve? And we did at that point say, well, come on, we should go for 2 stars here. So when we reopen this new restaurant, that's what we're going to be. And so we did what we felt was right in terms of providing ourselves with a kitchen that could deliver that quality food and bolster the brigade a little bit. And then set about doing that, which thankfully a couple of years later we got the 2nd star. And then literally the last 18 years we've just been doing what we do, and mostly with a very consistent team. I had the same head chef for a long time, a guy called Rob Weston, without a doubt the greatest unsung hero in the country. Hopefully he'll have his moment, but he left a couple of years ago, now got a new head chef, but we stayed very much as a team, Rob and I, for all those years.